Here we go. So I've been sitting in the background of some of these talks, and it's I saw Sophie's talk on California and Kenny's talk on Sichuan. I feel like it's clearly the next natural step is to go to the next top spot, which is Caithness. So what I'm going to do is kind of give you a run through of where Caithness is, some of the recent sightings that we've seen, talk through the Caithness bird list, species that we do and don't have up here, which can be a bit unusual. And I kind of run through some of the seasonal highlights, and then I'll have a section at the end about some of the rarities, and I've got a few mammals thrown in between. So I've a bit of my own housekeeping. Because I've only been here about 5 years, I've had to borrow a load of pictures. My photography's terrible, but luckily we've got some really good photographers here in Karen Monroe and Julian Smith. So I'm really grateful to them for the photographs. And a lot of the information from the past I've got from Birds of Caithness text that Pam Collette and Sinclair Manson, the county recorder, put together in 1986. It's just kind of way of gathering all the data that's out there and on the official list of Caithness, and there's some interesting bits in that I'll run through. So this is Caithness in the green, so right at the top of Scotland. It's about 2.5 hour drive north of Inverness, or a 4 hour train ride, which takes you all the way through Dingwall and Lairg, Bro and up the coast that way. What this doesn't show is that we've got just above us is Orkney and then Shetland. So one of the places that people are most familiar with Caithness is John O'Groats in the top corner, top northeast corner. We've got two of the main towns of Thurso and Wick, and I spent the first 3 years of my Caithness time based up in Thurso, and driving down to Forsnard near where the railway station line is at the bottom there. So some other places that people might be familiar with is that Scrabster. So that's the harbour where some people might have got the ferry across to Orkney from. Or between Dunnet and John O'Groats is the Gills Bay ferry as well, which also takes you across to South Ronaldsay on Orkney. And so the road around the outside is also part of the North Coast 500 route, which is people might be familiar with. It's becoming ever popular now with people driving around on holiday there now. So it's we kind of live on the edge of that at the moment. So 2 years ago, Nina and I bought a house in Castletown, which you can see is just in Dunnet Bay. So more specifically, this is Dunnet Bay, and the red arrow there is pointing to where we live. So it's kind of a nice 5-minute walk through the woods, and we've got the bay right on our doorstep. So it's really nice in the summer that we've got spotted flycatcher breeding in that tiny little woodland. Gets a few migrants on the edge. Really good for waders, terns breeding in the area. You can kind of get a general idea of the kind of rough habitat from this area, and this is taken from the plain above Dunnet Head, which is the most northerly point of mainland UK, even though it's the tourist books will kind of say it's John O'Groats, but it's actually the top of Dunnet Head. You can see the just in the left-hand corner, little triangle is a kind of patch of kind of evergreen, evergreen woodland, which is that's quite nice. It's got the odd common crossbill in there, and we do have some still natural rock doves in the area, so they're not all turned to feral doves yet, or feral pigeons. So when Steve asked me to put this talk together, I had a quick look on Bird Guides to kind of look at the recent sightings, and it was just full of Iceland and glaucous gulls. So more specifically, it looks like this. So it's a photo took about 3 years ago in Scrabster Harbour with the juvenile Iceland gull on the left and juvenile glaucous gull on the right. But it's actually a lot more going on in the background than this. A lot of the locals don't bother reporting Iceland gulls and glaucous gulls because they are so common up here. So one thing at the moment is that there's at least 14 Iceland gulls that are kind of hanging around between Scrabster Harbour and Thurso Bay, which is a stretch that's only about a mile of coastline. We've got a couple of Iceland gulls in the bay at Dunnet as well. So everywhere on the coast is just littered with Iceland gulls at the moment, even more so than places like Orkney and Shetland. So at the start of the year, there was still a lesser whitethroat that was lingering in Wick, which I've not actually seen this bird properly yet, and we're hoping to get tail shot, but it looks like a kind of eastern blithey type lesser whitethroat. Nina found a couple of snowbentings on our webs this weekend, so they're kind of lingering around. And a bit further afield to get a taste of what's around. As well, yeah. So we had a female surf scoter kind of seems to be lingering in the bay with some velvet scoters. There's an American American herring gull reported near the power station in Dounreay not so long ago as well. So it's kind of a big variety rather than just Iceland and glaucous gulls. Some oddballs around at the moment. So in November, we're out birding on John O'Groats in a quarry, and there was a couple of coltits in there. That's very unusual, and thought, oh, that's a bit odd, but I didn't really think much of it. And then coltits started turning up all over the place in unusual places. So last year on my patch in Castletown, I only had one coltit and one long-tailed tit the whole year, and they started turning up all over the place. So we got some mist nets up at a place called St. John's Pool in the garden, and we caught quite a few of them, and two in particular turned out to be these continental race of coltits with a much grayer mantle. They've got quite a nice crest on them and a nice bit more of a black bib on them. But the most important thing is they've got, for anyone who's a ringer, is they've got wings of 66 and 65, which is out of the range of a normal British coltit. So even though some were moving from around the UK, but we don't know exactly where from, there's continental birds amongst them. And then Gills Bay, where the ferry goes for Orkney, we've got this odd sparrow at the moment, which seems to be a bit of a Italian sparrow, Spanish sparrow lookalike, but it could easily be like a tree sparrow, house sparrow hybrid. But we don't know much more than that at the moment. It's just a few interesting bits. So these numbers don't quite add up because it's an ever-changing list, but I got this from Sinclair's Caithness birds list, and I've got a few interesting birds on here. So obviously the great auk in the middle is the one that's extinct at the moment. But I always considered escapes. There was this weird run of Chilean flamingos, which someone might be able to explain to me afterwards. But we had 2 records in 1974, one in 1977, one in 1983, and one which wintered in the 1986 and 1987. So I have no idea where they came from, but someone might be able to tell me which zoo they came from, maybe. So those considered escapes and ferals. We've had a couple of Ross's geese turned up a couple of years ago. There's rumours that it might be changing on the list because there's a chance that they might be genuine birds, but I know how people feel about dodgy ducks and geese. But one of the more interesting ones I found on this list was that there's nightingales, one of the introduced species. So there was in the late 18th century, Sir John Sinclair attempted to introduce nightingales into Caithness. He placed them under the just replaced the eggs of robins that he basically took the eggs from London, stuck them under the eggs of robins, and they successfully fledged, hung around for a couple of weeks, and then disappeared off the face of the earth. Never to be seen again. I thought that was interesting after all the kind of scientific research and monitoring that went into Sophie Lee's talk on the introduction of white-tailed eagle and golden eagle, that back in the 17th century, you could just pick up an egg and put it where you wanted to. So I thought that was interesting. And since then, there's never been a record of common nightingale since then. And there wasn't one before either, so that's quite interesting. That's going to tumble on the Caithness list at some point. So I took this from Sinclair as well about the topography. What I mean by that is that we get breeding Arctic skewers up here and breeding great skewers. Wimble breed up here. And we're right at the top of the range of some of the species in the photo here. So it's a long-tailed tit, swift breeding Thurso, where we can actually see Hoy on Orkney, but they don't breed across the other side. And some of the habitats very similar. I had originally put blackcap on this, but I've realised that they've since started breeding up further north, kind of the natural spread. So yeah, if we go out into the middle of nowhere, we'll still find wood warblers, pied flycatchers, red starts, and things like bullfinch. But some of the bits we don't get is there's only one record of nuthatch up here. They're gradually spreading and kind of working their way north. And one of the other ones is the green woodpecker. There's only one record of green woodpecker at the moment. So some of the birds that are spreading are a magpie that I'm really excited to get one on the patch this year because they've been gradually spreading up north. And it's a bit of a weird high five moment getting a magpie on the patch, which is very different to being at home back in North Wales. And it was 3 years ago that the second record of jay turned up in Caithness. and I twitched that just to get it on my Caithness. I wasn't sure how long it's going to be till the next one, but that was the day before I'd been twitching the bee eater, so that's quite a strange combination. So one of the specialist birds up in Caithness is the green and white fronted geese. So we've got 2 flocks up here at the moment, and they're dwindling. They're really struggling. So that's one of the birds we're trying to keep an eye on. But these are really easy to see at places like Loch May because they hang around at the side of the road. But there's concerns at the moment because there's wind turbines going up left, right, and centre, and nobody really knows the movements. They're trying to put them between the roosting sites and the foraging sites. So we're trying to find a bit more about these at the moment. So I talk about Iceland and glaucous gulls, but I spoke to Karen about how excited I get by Iceland and glaucous gulls, and he said, "Oh, was it?" So it's I'm trying to get the data here. So 2012, there was a big influx of Iceland gulls into Thurso and Scrabster, and Karen had 40 together on one of the walls, and she took this photo, and I just think it's amazing. And this is one of my favourites. This is one I took a couple of years ago at Scrabster of an adult Iceland gull. We also had a colouring bird on the Thurso River a couple of years ago, and kind of got quite excited by that one, thinking it's perhaps come over from Newfoundland, but no, it was ringed in Arbroath at a tip, and it regularly gets seen at Arbroath Football Club, wandering around the pitch at half time, picking up chips, and full time everyone throws their waste away, and they find the Iceland gull chasing after it. So in every bay up here, especially this time of the year, there's long-tailed ducks all over the place. So we did the Webb's count of Dunnet Bay this weekend, and there was 117 in there, but regular flocks of over 120. I think what seems to happen is the males tend to leave early, so there's the big bulk of the birds are males at the moment. I think they'll carry on north, perhaps migrating up to Iceland and top of Scandinavia soon, and then we'll get replaced by females. But such a nice bird to have around. And on the really calm days, you can hear them doing the little trumpeting call. That's a lovely little sound. I've got a few kind of big flock pictures. So for my English winter bird survey, I went to Brewsterlean's RSPB and did it there. So my transect starts off, and I'm never a big fan of these winter transects because they're absolutely freezing up here, and sometimes they're quite difficult to get to because of the roads have been frozen or snow everywhere. But yeah, I stopped the car and went over to the corner of the woods to start off, and there's like a nice flock of 31 crossbills flying around. So that was a nice, good start. And then I kind of went over a couple of fences, got around the river, and this field just exploded full of finches. And my estimate of this flock with brambling was about 600. Amongst these, we had 200 chaffinches, we had linnets, twites, goldfinches. It was a nightmare to count, but yeah, really exciting to see. And it's only after that I was kind of reminded that this was exactly the same time as the mega flock in Slovenia that had 5 million. So I wonder if a few of them had kind of made it over. But yeah, this Brewsterlean's is a really good place. So on top of this mega finch flock and all the crossbills, you get hen harrier flying around there. The green and white fronts around there, and you can get day flying shorty owls and things like that as well. But yeah, just amazing birds on this little bit of crop that have been left by the RSPB team there. I've been there in subsequent years, and just the numbers have been much smaller. You still get the odd brambling, but not to this kind of big flock size. One of my favourite bits about being up here is that even in a kind of non-waxwing influx year, there's still generally waxwings to be seen. So I took this in Thurso a few years ago, and this is the kind of thing that you just see when you bump into the shops now and again, just these odd small flocks. So this year we had 6 in the woods at Castle Hill, and me and Nina popped out to go and see them because they've been around a couple of days. It's always nice to see. And then we didn't see them on one weekend, and then we got back to the house and then they flushed them out of the garden. So that's a bit of a shame to not be in the garden when they're around. But we did get one drop in on the big garden bird watch last year, which was always nice to see. But as far as some of the bigger flocks go, I've got Karen's photo here of part of a flock of 1,000 that were turned up in 2010. So this is at Ulrig, which is just a 2-mile walk up the road. So just phenomenal numbers. So I can never really get bored of waxwings. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping for a flock of that size soon. So I think it was Jeff was speaking last week about these ermine stoats, and I'd not seen one before, so I got very excited by this, and this is already in my talk. But yeah, saw this on the coast, and I'm not used to seeing them like this because I'm used to the Conwy RSPB ones of looking much more with a browner coat on top. It looks kind of like I've got the exposure wrong on the camera, but yeah, it's actually white and getting whiter. One of the highlights of the first lockdown is that because I can just walk down the bay, there was no one around, so it got the otters a bit more confident than they would be normally. Generally, you can get to quite a few of the lochs in Caithness and see an otter if you've got a nice calm day. They'll be swimming around, but there's a regular one that's been hanging around at Thurso as well. It just it gets really inquisitive, and he'll follow the dog walks on the side, just following the dog's movements and just trying to, they're almost trying to play. So this is one of the highlights of the winter. I think this is November or December. This bearded seal was found on the Thurso River. Yeah, I've seen a couple before, one on Orkney and one on Shetland, but yeah, I couldn't refuse popping down to see the bearded seal. And again, you've got 4 Iceland gulls sitting next to it, which is pretty smart. You can tell this is my terrible photo, but yeah, surfscoat is quite a regular bird in the winter. Like I said, I've had a female in the bay a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, we had a big flock of about 200 scoters came in a couple of years ago, and there was 2 surfscoters with them. That's so you can never get bored of surfscoters. I found this white-billed diver off Holborn Head a couple of years ago as well. Since then, I've had another couple in the bay and done it as well. So I had one flying, well, during lockdown, I was going to wandering around, and you see this nice banana bill flies in. So it's another species. There must be a lot more out here than I can see. There's, yeah, I think there's great northern divers all over the shop. So I think if there was a few more birders up here, I thought sure a lot more white-billed divers would be found. Quite a nice regular bird to see in the winter is a white-tailed eagle. So we quite often get shouts of birds sitting on carcasses, and if you hear that, it just goes for them straight away because they'll quite often linger for most of the day. We've had at least 2 over the house since we moved into Castletown as well, so it's they're not too difficult to see, and I see them when I'm going down to Forsnard on the train as well. The train will often hit a deer or something, and the white-tailed eagles will be sitting on the side of the track. So this time of the year is particularly exciting for the geese flocks. Unfortunately, I can't get out to them at the moment, but yeah, some massive pink-footed geese and grey-lag goose flocks around. You get the occasional oddity with them. So here we've got tundra bean goose on the left, taiga bean goose on the right, and then this kind of intermediate looking one on the in the centre, and that's generally thought to be tundra actually, but I'd sit on the fence for that one. I see some of the books kind of say leave them undescribed if they're in the middle, but yeah, it was intermediate in size and intermediate in the build profile as well, but it's always interesting to see. And I got an email from the county recorder a couple of years ago to say that there's a couple of Canada geese around, and I thought, oh, I need Canada geese for my Caithness list. I better go and see this one just to see what could be interesting. I popped down there, and there was these 2 slightly smaller looking Canada geese, and I did a bit more research on them. They turned out to be Todd's Canada geese. But yeah, I got a terrible photo, but I couldn't refuse taking a photo when they got the bean geese kind of walking through behind. I thought probably 2 species don't have a sort of cross paths very often, but unfortunately I think they're doing that in Norfolk at the moment, so it's not a one-off at the moment. So snow goose quite often turn up in the winter as well. So this is one or 2 that I saw just driving to work in Forsnard, kind of driving down the road, and you see a massive goose flock, and these 2 white ones stand like a beacon. So it's a quick U-turn, take a couple of shots, and get back to work before I'm too late. It's yeah, always nice to see. So this is the opening screenshot that Karen took, and there's only 2 sites with hides in Caithness, and this isn't one of them. So this site is usually absolutely freezing. But yeah, 2 years ago up here, this is Loch Wester, and there's a flock of 800 hooper swans that were there for a few weeks, and it kind of feels a bit like a kind of Calaverocky or sort of Martin Mere type site when it's like this. They've got all the ducks following around. There's loads of widgeon on this place, just seeing what the hoopers flick up. That's always really nice. And whilst you're watching these, you've got the crossbills in the woods behind. There's usually a hen harrier quarter in here. So one day I had 3 together just on this far bank. So kind of one of the best things and one of my favourite parts of being up here is that a lot of the lochs don't get checked. So you get the occasional one that's checked for a webs count now and again. But if you go to a loch, you can generally assume that no one's been there that day. So last year we had a long returning green-winged teal on the left there, and whilst I was looking at it, I found one just a couple of miles up the road as well. I just assumed it'd be the same bird jumping around, but no, I had 2 the same day. I got an American widgeon that kind of lingers around Loch Watton on the top right. There's also the odd hybrid out there, which is a bit odd. Ringneck ducks. It was 3 years ago that had a mad winter where I found 5 different ringneck ducks within the space of about 10 days. But who knows what's out there at the moment, because the American widgeon I know is still around, but no one's able to check any of the other sites at the moment. Smee's quite a good one. So we've had between 1 and 3 wintering at a place called Loch Watton, Scarmcleft for the last few years. But this is one that Nina found on her way to work in Thurso on a boating pond, which is probably about, I'm not sure if the Ayres Park kind of pond's still there, but it's about a quarter of the size of that. So you can see how tame this bird was. It's amazing. So snow buntings, they vary year to year. So at the moment, there's only got 2 in Dunnet Bay. It's the only 2 that we know of. But I've seen flocks of 200 plus inland with the goose flocks. But this is a photo that Karen took of 1,000 near Janetstown, which is just about half a mile south of Thurso. And reading through the historic books, there's an exceptional record of 2,000 at one point near Noss Head, 1975. There's another 1,000 in 2010. So these kind of big flocks still do occur, which is quite nice. Yeah, just can't get bored with snow buntings and the amazing noises they make, and you get the occasional Lapland bunting with them as well. So we've kind of got hilly habitats as well. So might be quite surprised to know that ptarmigan are breeding up here as well. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about getting out about when kind of lockdown finishes. I'm going to head straight up to the hills and find out what's up there. It's a stunning photo by Karen here. And also, whilst I'm kind of on the topic of things that are a bit further north, that in the last crossbill census, we also have Scottish crossbill are in a couple of the forests at Rumster and at Forsnard. So I'm keen to try and get the tapes out on them to see if they're still around. From the ones in the forest byres, they're all common crossbills at the moment, but it's interesting that up this far north. So spring bird race 2019. So just trying to compare it a little bit to what we do in North Wales. So we have to go right down to the border with Sutherland in 2019 to kind of find things like magpie, which is a bit of an odd one. So at the same time, we're kind of looking for tree sparrows in these areas. Because we don't get species like jay, they're pretty much a write-off. The species that our go-to birds, we've got to head inland and look for white-tailed eagles and golden eagles. So we did a bit of a lockdown list this year where we're going to kind of do a bird race, a kind of communal effort of everyone that could see birds, what species they could see from the house. Recorded 110 species this year. Some quite interesting stuff turned up as well. So up here, because things like blue tit are still quite rare, that not everyone recorded blue tit on their list, which I find quite interesting. Everyone up here is really into the nature, and they notice things that are a bit unusual. So this was 3 years ago. This stunning rose-coloured starling turned up at Durran, which is about 2 miles south of Dunnet. And I could see the influx happening this year as well. So I put out a tweet just to say, look out for rose-coloured starlings. And within 2 days, we'd had 5 more records of these rose-coloured starlings. It was amazing. So this is an interesting one. So Maltoni's warbler. So I got a text or a tweet from Alan whilst I was working at Forsnard to say that someone had reported a Dartford warbler at Duncansby Head, and I think he'd re-identified it as a subalpine warbler. And subsequently, the person got more photographs, and it turned out to be a Maltoni's. And I'd seen one on Fair Isle before, and Nina's not much of a twitcher, so we're quite relaxed with this one. I thought Well, it's only about 15 miles on the road, but we'll play it cool. We'll just go quite relaxed. And we turned up at Duncansby Head, and there's cars everywhere, and we could see in the distance just people running around like headless chickens with scopes and binoculars. I'm thinking, oh, this is a bit too much a heavy twitch for Maltoni's warbler. It's a bit of a strange one. Could have been a bit confused by it. But anyway, we walked across the mall and got out across the other side and realised that people were watching orcas, and it's a orca watch weekend. And it's quite a strange one, but I've never been so disappointed to see an orca, because I was then keen on seeing the Maltoni's warbler. And someone said, oh, it's at the car park, so that's where we'd left it. And as we got there, it was sitting hopping around underneath the caravans, and so I took the picture of it on the bottom of the kind of cable in the caravan. And apparently what had happened is the orcas had swum past the watch point. Everyone had panicked and bolted it towards the fence. The Maltoni's warbler panicked and hit the window of a caravan, and that's why it's kind of a bit dazed and confused and kind of wandering around slowly. But I looked at the records book for the Big Birds of Caithness book, the kind of records of subalpine warblers, and I noticed this bird, and I thought, oh, this has got quite a brick red throat. I thought, this doesn't quite match up with the Western subalpine warbler. It's labelled as. So I got in touch with Sinclair, and he said, oh, I'll see if I can get in touch with Derek and see if he's got any original pictures. And then we got this nice picture showing a tail shot of this white creeping up the tail feathers, which confirmed it as an eastern subalpine warbler, and it got accepted by the BBRC. So subsequent to that, we've now got a Maltoni's warbler on the Caithness list, an eastern subalpine warbler on the list, but we now don't have an official western subalpine warbler on the list. So this is one of my highlights from the spring of this year. So me and Nina found a Hudsonian Wimbrel in the top left. And kind of, you see how it's different to the Wimbrel with a kind of all dark rump and slightly different face pattern and colour. This is quite an interesting one, because we'd just come back from Costa Rica 2 weeks before, and we'd seen them out there. So they're kind of on the radar, but this thing flew past with the Wimbrels, and they were all calling. Thought, both looked at each other and said, "I'm sure that's a Hudsonian Wimbrel," and we couldn't do anything about it. We had no photos. It just legged it and disappeared. So we sent a message around a couple of locals and thought it was a write-off, and it was about a week later, it flew past again. And I thought, oh yeah, it's definitely Hudsonian Wimbrel. And we sent this message to Sam to say, oh, he lives in Castletown, so we could just pop down and manage to get his photo. So now this is the first record for Caithness and the first for mainland Scotland. So yes, spring and summer is quite good for seeing black-throated diver up here as well in breeding plumage. So we get quite a few passage birds in spring, but they breed in places like Forsnard and a few places inland, so they quite regularly come into the bays. We've done it at Thurso and Sinclair's Bay, pick up a fish and then fly back inland. So you'd never have a bad day if you've seen a black-throated diver. So a bit further out to say, we get on a nice calm day, it's very easy to see Risso's dolphins, and can often see sort of 50, 60 plus. Quite distinctive as well. So they get called as orcas quite a lot, because they've got quite a kind of steep fin at the back. But as soon as they come out of the water, you can see their kind of blunt heads and scarred and amazing. But yeah, these come right into Dunnet Bay as well, so really nice to see. And one of the highlights up here is that the orcas are quite easy to see. So within we moved into a house in Castletown about 2 years ago today, and I kind of first walk out to the bay to go and check it out. There was the orcas came in. It's not a regular occurrence, but yeah, you can't go wrong with orcas being around. And when we were in Thurso as well, we got a shout to say that they were coming around Holborn Head at Scrabster, where the ferry goes to Orkney. And yeah, then we all just kind of walked down from the house. There's a 30-second walk, and then they're kind of swimming around behind the surfers in the water, which is quite scary. We've got a couple of Karen Monroe shots there that I thought were quite interesting. There's a nice picture of a peregrine with a hooded crow. So we get a few raptors being up here, things like hen harrier, which I mentioned before, and merlin. But yeah, peregrine's always nice to see. So I mentioned that Ponksy or Great Skewer are breeding up here, and Karen sent me a shot, and I couldn't not put it in, because I thought it was quite an interesting action shot. See I don't think the grey-lag geese on the left have the ability to kind of show any fear or the anger of the other bird, but they just kind of look just like they're plodding on with the day, really. But yeah, won't want to be on the other side of that angry grey-lag geese on the right. So this was a nice surprise in Dunnet Forest, just down the road. That I'd gone for a walk, and I could hear this funny noise, and it's kind of like a weird low bark coming from the tree, and out popped 3 pine martens, and it was always kind of hiding a little bit behind the branches, so it wasn't easy to photograph. But yeah, with binoculars, it's nice and easy to see, and really nice. I think it causes problems with some of the nest box breeding birds up here, and some of the tawny owls. But yeah, it's always interesting to see. This was a nice surprise a few years ago. So I'd just been helping Nina out with some field work on Fair Isle, and after that we'd been sitting having some chips on Lerwick Front and watching another bearded seal. And she had to go to Fuda the next day, and I had to go back to work in Caithness. So I hopped on the North Link on the way back up on the train. I was just about to get off in Thurso, and I got some news that there's a walrus in Wick. Like, oh crumbs, what are they here? It's like no choice really. You have to just stay on the train, but just risk not getting back. But yeah, it was well worth it. Kind of legged it from the train station. It was just sitting on the beach and stayed there for a couple of hours. And luckily, one of the local birders was there and gave me a lift back to Thurso. But yeah, interesting to see. I think this was seen on the way back up, and it's seen back in Norway on the way through as well. So St. John's Paul is an amazing site that Julian, who's taken a load of the photographs, he kind of built up from scratch. You can see his house in the background there, and he's got these one-way glass photography hides. It's about 150, 160 pairs of sandwich tern that breed on the far island, and you've got the Arctic tern breeding here, common terns. It's an amazing place for rarities as well, but this one-way glass is amazing. So as a ringer, it's really convenient. So Julian lets us in these hides, and you just stick your hand out the window, pick up a chick from the Arctic terns, put a ring on it, put it back, and the bird's not even noticed it's been ringed. But yeah, it's definitely worth a visit if you've got, even if you're heading through to Orkney, just to pop in there for an hour or two. It's amazing place. And this is one of the birds that St. John's Paul is most famous for. Is this nice breeding plumage grey phalarope. I don't know if there's been one looking this smart since, but I know Steve Kelly's mentioned this one to me before. Just amazing. This was about 2010, I think this bird was there. There's another nice bird that so I'd gone to do my seabird census work, and I'd gone to this site which was breeding common gulls in the previous census. I can't go into too much detail where it was, but yeah, I popped up to this loch, and there's a pair of redneck phalaropes spinning around there, and it's the first that had been seen for about 15, 20 years. But this comes off the back of the redneck phalaropes seem to do really well on Orkney and Shetland, and it was the same year that the first ones turned up and bred on Fair Isle as well. The whole of the East Caithness Cliff section is all special protected area, and it's just rammed full of razorbills, guillemots, and the puffins. And these are both my photographs, so you can see how tame some of these birds are. It's definitely worth a visit if you can stop on the way through. This is a camera trap that I have out at a place called Drumholliston on the north coast. So what I use here is these are all puffin burrows, and the camera trap looks at the number of individuals. You can try and estimate a breeding density from these photographs. So take a picture every 15 minutes. But every one of these little white dots is puffins. So you can kind of see the scale of how many seabirds are up in this area. So as Nigel mentioned earlier, one of my projects was working on a common scoter project and how they interact with invertebrates. So this is Forsnard Reserve. It's about 21,000 hectares owned by the RSPB, which is about a third of the size of Anglesey, I believe. And this is what it looks like more in the summer, which is much more easier to work in. Because of the area, it's kind of well known some of the species that breed in here, but they're pretty amazing things. So I'm not giving away any secrets as to locations and that, but wood sandpiper around this area. It's nice, so you can walk through the bog, this blanket bog area, and it doesn't take too long to find these wood sandpipers calling like mad. They're a nice song. Nice to see breeding green shank in there as well. They're a lot more common out there than the wood sandpipers, but yeah, green shank are nice to hear. Green sandpipers, one I've not bumped into yet, but I believe they're up here somewhere. Short-eared owl breed on Forsnard. Same with the hen harriers and merlins and birds like that. One of the interesting things about Forsnard is that we have Arctic skewer breeding in there. The numbers are really low now, but back in the day, there used to be about 200 pairs of Arctic skua, and these are all breeding about 40, 45 kilometers inland. So as part of the Common Scout project, I had to set up camera traps to kind of see what invertebrates and things are kind of using the side of the loss. And, this was a nice surprise to turn up. The red grouse with 3 chicks in the grass. I don't think I've ever seen a red grouse chick, and most of the time we see them at Forcenard. It's just you beat the red grouse off the ground by accident, they just fly off, and you just don't see them again. But yeah, it's nice to see them on the video. This is a nice, interesting one that I wasn't expecting to pick up. So this was, I think, the last week of May. So I suspect this has probably got a female on eggs somewhere out there. This is a rare breeding bird, panel jobby. This is a species we work on as common scoter, so half the UK population, which is about 9 to 10 pairs, breed annually in Forcenard. So part of the job is just kind of going around and trying to monitor them in any way we can, really. They're really difficult species to work with because they're so secretive. But yeah, there's a terrible picture, but this is a picture I've tried to use to kind of work out the size compared to the adult. But yeah, it's nice that they do seem to do okay out there. So kind of moving away to other interesting breeding birds without giving away locations again, but Mina and Nina popped out to one spot on the coast. As soon as we got out of the car, there was a singing marsh warbler, and then the second one piped up, and then there was a third one a bit further down the road, and a female skulking around underneath. And they stayed and sung for over 10 days, so they've gone down as possible breeding. Another interesting actually breeding species up here, but they didn't turn up the following year, so it just might have been a one-off. It's just an interesting one. So great white egret. This is the one I had to go and twitch because I thought, I'm not sure how long it's going to be till I get a next one, but yeah, this was about the 13th or 14th Caithness record, which I thought was interesting. Same for the spoonbill. Kind of thought, oh yeah, spoonbill's quite a good one to go and see, but every time we were passing, we couldn't see it. And this is a terrible picture, but the story behind it I think is quite interesting. We never find out what they're up to until it turned out later on that they were actually breeding on Orkney. And so I know where they were breeding, but it turns out that they were breeding on Orkney, but actually foraging in Caithness and flying across the Pentland Firth like a couple of times a day. So that's why we're kind of only seeing them intermittently when we actually pinned down where they were. So autumn's amazing for seabirds, especially if you get a big storm, kind of August time. Pom skewers will come into Dunnet Bay. A bit later on, you've got the Leach's petrels will come in. 2 years ago, we had 4 grey phalaropes together in the bay. It must be the same for all the Thurso Bay, but this is the one we concentrate on the most. So this is Julian's photograph of a juvenile Sabine gull. I got a picture of an adult in Dunnet Bay last autumn, but it's terrible, so I thought I'd stick with Julian's photo for this one. But yeah, seabirds when they're moving past are really close, so I kind of more used to kind of seeing little dots in the distance of things like Scottish shearwaters, but when you can actually see the shine on the underwing and you get the brownish colour to them, it's quite nice. And to be able to photograph Scottish shearwaters that are coming straight on the coastline is just really nice to see. So kind of as you get into autumn, you get the odd birds like the red-backed shrike turn up. This is a rose finch that Nina and I found at Duncansby Head. We had another one this spring actually in just around the corner from the house. That's a nice one to look out for. It gets a bit later, the yellow brads turn up, and they turn up a bit like en masse, a bit like Orkney and Shetland, perhaps the east coast of the UK. There's days where it's definitely the most common warbler in Caithness. And a little bit later on again, the Siberian chiffchaffs turn up. This is from November. We had 2 together at Wick Riverside. Got back home to find that there's one in our own garden, which was quite nice to have. Yeah, and another one down in Castle Hill as well. So once they turn up, they're really nice. As soon as they call, they're really easy to find. But I went the whole of last year without seeing a single common chiffchaff on the patch. So it's if you do get a chiffchaff, it's more likely to be a Siberian than a normal. And in no time, we're back to winter again. So me and Nina walk around the bay, and I thought, this looks a really good day for little auk. And lo and behold, off the harbour, there's one just floating around. So I gave Sam a shout because he's really keen on his photography, and he popped down and got this amazing picture. This is kind of part of an influx. We had a few turning up in odd places, like outside the co-op in Thurso. But yeah, it's never a bad day if you see a little hawk. Kind of moving on to some of the bigger rarities now. You see a nice big mix of kind of eastern and western stuff, and I kind of think that's perhaps some of these were seen in during Sophie's kind of California talk, and some were perhaps seen in the Sichuan area when Kenny was out there for some of these species. But yeah, this Baltimore Oriole, I would have loved to have seen this. A really smart bird. The Oriental turtle dove hung around for a few weeks. It was seen at Julian's place at St. John's Pool, and it was seen on the coast a bit further around. So on the bottom right, Nina found this Tiger Merlin in 2018. So I was really excited because I found a Kumlin's gull with a few Iceland gulls in the bay, and I was glad to find that she'd taken this photograph of this Tiger Merlin up at Scrabster. But I managed to catch up with it about a week later, chasing snow buntings on Holborn Head. So kind of a relief in the end. But yeah, it just kind of shows the kind of potential for the monster rarities if you're that way inclined. Here's a few more photographs that Julian gave me. Greater yellowlegs at St. John's Pool, dark-eyed junco at Duncansby, and I think this is the American herring gull that was at Scrabster a few years ago. So I kind of thought I'd finish off with one of Karen's photographs of the Northern Lights. So I've never seen it this well, but we do get it, and I'm quite lazy at not getting out for this sort of thing. I should get out a bit more often, but this is looking from the corner of our bay, looking at Dunnet Head. Yeah, it's always nice to see. Can't go wrong if you see Northern Lights as well. But yes, that concludes my talk.